this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big call here.
Marshall thinks they have it. And the Horde do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway. And a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road. And it is an opening touchdown return. And just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2. Going for the win. Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right. Quick strike. And they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia. And it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season 11-1.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. We've got a game to recap. Yeah, it's not that it didn't come out the way we wanted it to, but I still felt good about how it might play out. And of course, I'm talking about Western Kentucky and Indiana. Toppers lose a close one, 33-31. Steven's here with me. We're going to talk about everything, really, because it was a great day. It was a great event to be at. It was a good game to watch. Really, the only thing that soured the whole thing was the score at the end of the game. I mean, otherwise, it was all you hope that a game day in Bowling Green could be. And Steven tweeted it a couple of times and got into a couple of discussions with a couple of folks about how everything was like perfect. You know, the tailgating, the weather, the interaction, the stadium, the energy, everything was great. And that's what we want to see. So before we get into the game, I guess, let Steve come in here and talk about the whole day, the atmosphere, because it was it was as close to a do not miss occasion on a WKU football Saturday as there has been in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it really was just amazing. From, I was on campus around noon. I went to the volleyball game to watch the Moonshine Throwdown volleyball game, saw the sweep, saw that tailgating was already robust, set up everywhere. And I'm talking, there was people tailgating in the far lot by the roundabout. There were people tailgating all along the Egypt lot, the Creason lot, where the softball structure is. Usually people are parked there. You don't always see tailgating all the way up that road leading to that big intersection. Then in the valley, the RV lot, the south lawn in front of Preston. It was literally packed out everywhere. Tents everywhere, good food everywhere, drinks everywhere, people having a good time. Didn't see any scuffles, didn't see any, just something that you would look at and be like, oh, let's calm down a little bit, guys. It just was all in all good fun. Weather was perfect. It was a parents' weekend, so that may have had some effect on more engagement, a lot more people in town. But like you said, and like I alluded to on Twitter, that type of environment shouldn't be an anomaly. That should be the normal game day atmosphere. I'll be damned whoever the opponent is, a Big Ten opponent, a CUSA opponent, an FCS opponent. I don't care. We should show up, show out, wear red, be loud, no matter who we're playing. We can talk circles around, just how much it would raise and elevate our profile of, not just the university, but just athletics and recruiting and, just financial and just everything. I mean, a high tide raises all boats, and that obviously we can do it because I've seen it 2, 3, 4 times, over, a decade now where it's huge like that. And looking forward on the upcoming schedule, there's more games that are going to attract, just the name wise, we're going to see that again. But man, if everybody would engage like that every week, game in, game out, man, there's no telling how high we could, how many games we could win and how much our profile would be elevated. And put our name in better footing and discussion wise when you start talking about conference realignment, just because, man, it was amazing. I soaked it all in. The game is what it was. We'll dive into that, but just the atmosphere and everything leading up to the game was literally the best I'd ever been a part of at Western, bar none.
It looked really good on TV as well. I mean, of course, I watched the game, and I didn't get to see any of the tailgating other than what people were posting on the social media feeds and stuff like that. But that you have no idea what the atmosphere is, what the electricity is in the air by a still photo that comes across your timeline. So I know that, just by seeing that a lot of people were having a good time, and many people were talking about how great that it was. And I don't want to derail this discussion, but you brought up realignment, and Western Kentucky has been like very, very, very hardly barely mentioned in this round of realignment. And it's kind of crazy because, as far as Conference USA goes, they've got the best overall athletic department from a championship standpoint from top to bottom, but everybody says it all the time that football drives the bus when it comes to these. And it makes you start to wonder if that's a big reason why that Western doesn't get mentioned as much as other teams that don't have as quality other like Olympic sports or, as rich of a basketball tradition, but they can put more butts in the seats at a football game every Saturday. And it doesn't matter who's on the schedule. They'll put, they'll fill the capacity of Western Stadium and then some every week, no matter what, by and large. But you can talk about teams down in South Florida that they're not going to do that anyway, but they'll throw as much money as they can at it to make it work if that's what it takes. But there's some teams that, like, of course, like Marshall, they ribbed you guys a little bit because you're like, wow, you set an attendance record with 25,171, by the way, is the new record at the Houch. And I say, yeah, because they're not going to push 30,000 because the place can't hold 30,000. It can't. And standing room only, you're still not going to get another 5,000 people in there. So it's going to require some expansion in order to be pushing the needle towards 30,000. But still, I'm willing to die on the hill that you should be able to get 22,000 people to a football game every Saturday when you are in a metro area. And I tweeted this of almost 70,000 and a city population of almost 70,000 and a metro population of almost 180. I mean, that should be easily attainable. And I had some discussions with people on Twitter throughout the past couple of days. And, I say things like Western has to own fandom within a 45-minute radius of the campus. And they do, because people always throw up that argument. Well, they compete with UK and they compete with Louisville. And I get that they're not going to shut their doors. So you're going to have to do something to own fandom in Warren County and the surrounding counties. So what has to be done? I don't know. If I knew those answers, then I'd just wave my magic wand and, have the stadium filled. But you're right. Being able to do that every weekend, every home game, you only get 6 opportunities on average to see the team at home. And to me, that's always been a gift. I never wanted to miss one of those 6 opportunities, if I had one. And now I really appreciate those because I don't get to go to games hardly ever. Maybe if I'm lucky, I get to go to one game either in Bowling Green or in Huntington a year. And that's it. So, it pains me that there are people that choose not to go when they could, and I want to go and can't. But all that being said, you're right. The attendance raises all the boats and the high tide and all that good stuff. And it just means more revenue for the university. It means it's easier to recruit when you can bring a guy in and see a packed house every Saturday. And, but how do you do that? Well, I said the quick answer is you score a lot of points and you win a lot of games. That's what people want to see. Well, luckily that's the kind of the train we're on right now. We can hopefully start seeing some more wins, but they're definitely putting up way more points than they have been the past couple of years. The offense is far more exciting than it was last year or the year before that. They just came up a little bit short this week, Steve. So let's talk about the game against Indiana. I've said it over and over. I felt really good about this game for a number of months, and I proved to be almost right. Had Penix not kind of played out of his mind from a passing standpoint, we might be looking at a Western Kentucky victory here. Tops came into the game plus 9.5. They lose by 2. Over under was 63, so the teams nailed the over. They got 64. I mean, I thought it would be more than that. You thought it would be way more than that, but still, an over's an over. But let's talk about some of these stats here. 507 yards for the Hoosiers to Western's 458. Time of possession, another killer for the Tops. I mean, I did not see this ironing out kind of like an Army type game. 38 minutes, 34 seconds for the Indiana. 21 minutes, 26 seconds for the Tops. That's minus 17 and a couple of seconds, man. Jeez. And to still only lose by 2. I mean, what was it last time? Minus 19 and lost by 3? Jiminy Christmas. This is getting rough. 35 first downs for the Hoosiers against 24 for the Tops. Nobody turned the ball over, which is something you said had to happen for the Tops, and they held true to that at least. Look, we mentioned the sellout crowd, 25,171. Standing ovation to the Toppers. Fan base, awesome job turning out. Now you got to continue to do that for UTSA, for Charlotte, for Old Dominion, FIU, FAU, whoever's on the slate. You got to come out for those teams too. Here's where it went bad for me, Steve. Western Kentucky does basically nothing in the first quarter and spots Indiana 14 points. Another slow start, and they just could not get all the way back. Yeah, you guys can't see what he's doing, but he'll tell you what he said that was his first point. You can't have a slow start, and that's exactly what happened. But they just could not dig all the way back from that. So spotting your team 14 points, especially a Big Ten team, it's not something that's going to lead to a lot of success. But for me, of course, I'm going to go to this, and I tweeted it immediately when it happened, so it's not like I'm playing hindsight type thing. 4th and 1 from the Indiana 48 early-ish in the fourth quarter. And Tyson Helton elects to punt. And immediately when he elected to punt, I said, you got to go for that. You have to go for that. Your offense is moving the ball. They can get you 1.5 yards or 2 yards to keep this drive going. You've got to go for that. And what happened? They punted down to the Indiana 14. Indiana subsequently goes 86 yards for a touchdown to make it a 2-score game. Western does add on a touchdown, but they never get the ball back. That decision, you can't really say one decision won or lost a game, but that one gave them a legitimate shot to take a lead, and Helton elected to punt. He explained the decision after the game, but still in that moment right then and there, I'm like, I got Bailey Zappi and a whole mess of wide receivers that can get me a yard if I need it. I'm going to go get that yard. And if I lose it right here, I lose it right here. Steve, what about the game? That's kind of what I saw. I know you were a lot closer. You were paying a lot more close attention, but those are the big things that stuck out to me. What else did you see?
Yeah, the slow start definitely, has become a common theme. It was against UTM. It was against Army. Now it was against Indiana. We all know what the offense is capable of doing, but whether we're just not clicking fast enough at making adjustments on the fly, whatever it is, we're starting slow, we're digging holes. And, now we have 2 losses by, 5 total combined points, which both could have been a play or 2 away from both being victories. And kind of in hindsight, definitely there was a 4th down we went for early in the game. It's hard to question that one. I don't mind going for it. I'm kind of surprised we elected to run it on 3rd and 4th down with Cofield and then Robichaux instead of putting a wide receiver out in space. Obviously hindsight's 20/20 on that one. If we would have made it and then went down and got some points, genius. But we didn't make it. We didn't score points. The hole got bigger. So obviously hindsight makes that one easier to question. But yeah, the 4th down late in the game, Zappi was herding them to the line. He was ready to go. Looked to the sideline and was given the the old hook off the stage. He was ready to go. You
Yep.
hate to see it. In my opinion, I think most people's opinion, armchair quarterbacks or whatever. I mean, you have nothing to lose in that situation. You're the underdog. You've been losing the whole game. You have nothing to lose by going for that and try to get the points and trying to take the lead. Swing the momentum completely in your favor. But then, as I've had a couple days now to digest the game, looking back at it, and you've heard me say this before. A couple seasons ago when we played Army, we beat them 17-8, and then we played Army this year. I said, we beat them by out Army and Army. I think Indiana beat us by out Westerning Western. I think they were very good on third down. Their conversion rate on third down was great. They put wide receivers in space, find the soft spots of our defense, and just kept chopping us up. Not big plays, but just chopping us up, move the chains. You see the first down inequity there. They were just moving the ball, taking what the defense gave them, and they were getting points every drive. For the majority of the start of that game, they were tacking on, whether it was 6, whether it was 3, tacking on points. Points were a premium, and it came down to some of those points that they had to have. So I hate to look at it that way, but they kind of just were more efficient than we were. Penix had a good game. I feel like the defense was improved, overall. There was more pressure, better rushing defense. We've talked about that ad nauseum through the first 2 games. It was better. It came out as a loss at the end of the day. Went in the right-hand column, learn from it, get over it really quick because you've got a real tough opponent coming up this weekend as well. But great game, unfortunate loss, but still things to be happy about, proud of, and obviously still things to go back to a drawing board and try to figure out why we're seeing patterns of things happening multiple games.
Well, we're also not going to sit here and talk about this game like Indiana wasn't flopping on defense left and right to sputter this Western Kentucky offense and then pretending like nothing was happening. They absolutely were doing that. And it happened on more than one occasion, and it happened on more than 2 or 3 occasions. Every time Western got a groove going, somebody all of a sudden had a cramp, or somebody was, I think I'm hurt. And then, they're out for a play and then right back in making a big tackle. It's a chicken shit way to do things. And I think if I'm a Big Ten coach and a Big Ten team and I'm on my heels, worried about what a Conference USA team is going to do to me, I think I need to evaluate how I operate and what the message is I'm sending my team. Because if that's what you got to do to win, then you got no business lining up against the Ohio State Buckeyes, because that ain't going to fly in Columbus. You better believe that. That won't happen in Columbus. You might get away with it once or twice, but you won't make that a pattern against the Buckeyes. Those officials won't let it happen. But look, I just think it's terrible. I don't blame referees and officiating on wins and losses. Just like I said in the Appalachian State Marshall recap with Trace, and you say this a lot, these things tend to even themselves out by and large. But when it's something that's so obvious, then you have to talk about it, because it's a weapon to nullify a strength of a team. Western thrives on tempo and keeping the ball moving and picking up chunks and quick plays and does somebody just throw a wrench in that every time they get going? It happened on back-to-back plays. So it's bull crap. It's bull crap, and I don't mind calling it that. And if Indiana fans, which there are probably 0 listening to this podcast, hear that, come at me in the mentions. If you think I'm lying, then feel free to hit me up on the Twitterverse. But every Western fan that had eyeballs on that game saw it, and they will agree with it. They're not blaming the loss on the officials, but those officials didn't do anything to keep that from happening throughout the duration of the game. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a roughly officiated game. I mean, it seemed like there were a lot of 50-50 calls, pass interference, holding calls, offsides calls, just 50-50 judgment calls. And it felt like every single one of them went against us. It really felt like every single one of them went against us. And then, talking about players dropping to the ground. I mean, I literally was watching these guys try to line up on defense. A dude dropped down, grabbed his hamstring, and then he looked around and saw somebody else was already down. And he hopped right up and jogged over to the sideline. I was like, number 4, what are you? You're hurt. What are you doing? You just ran off the field. So, yeah, I mean, it obviously was an intentional practice, and there were some boos, just similar to the La Tech Conference Championship game a few years ago when it was obviously being employed as a strategy. People were booing because it was obviously flops. It was obviously, man down. We got to slow these people down, catch our breath, free timeout. But yeah, the ref wise, I mean, it was one of the tougher officiated games that I've ever been in attendance for. It wasn't very fun. I was very vocal. I was very lubed up, greased up, and hollering from the club seats up there. They couldn't hear me, but I was hollering. And my wife will attest to that as she tried to get me to quiet down. But yeah, the calls were rough. The obviously faking injuries. You just hate to see it, man. Just go out there and play good, clean football. Do it the right way and win the game. Based upon talent and strategy, not upon hey, how can we manipulate this drive or this momentum or this whatever to favor us instead of favoring you. And that's kind of what we saw going on in multiple facets of that game.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that offsides call that was on a field goal that gave dude like a second opportunity to kick. He missed the first one and got a phantom. A lot of folks, I didn't see it, of course, because, the camera view is behind the goalpost. But, they say, oh, that was definitely not offsides, but they gave dude another shot at the field goal, and he nails that one, which is, in and of itself, it's a whole nother thing. But, they were working the system. So that tells me that the rule needs changed, right? This coming out for one play thing is bull. I mean, if you're hurt, then, hey, dude, you're hurt. And I said, in real time that you should have to stay out for the remainder of the drive, whatever that is, then you got to be out for that. And if they want you back in the game, then, perhaps the coach feels comfortable burning a team timeout to get you back into the game. But something's got to give. If you're hurt, you're hurt. This one play thing ain't cool. Teams are using that as a way to manipulate tempo offenses. And if you're not built to keep up with that, then that's too damn bad. That's just too bad. So let's talk about some players. Some guys had some good games, of course, and let's get into some of the positives instead of dwelling on how the officials did certain things to keep certain things from happening. Bailey Zappi, 31 of 44, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 85.8 QBR. Noah Whittington, 6 carries for 41 yards, good for 6.8 yards per carry, and Adam Cofield, 10 for 40, 4.0 yards per carry. Tops ran the ball a lot better this game. I just don't think they were in the type of game that allowed them to continue running the ball. They had to stick with their strength in this one. They really didn't have much leeway. Like you said, Indiana was continually getting points, whether it be 3 or 6. They had to keep pace. And I think we all know by now the only way or the most efficient way Western's going to keep pace is through the air. Jarrett Stern, 7 catches, 82 yards, good for 11.7 yards per catch. Malachi Corley, my goodness, 9 catches, 70 yards, 7.8 yards per catch, and a touchdown. Great game by Malachi. Mitchell, I called him Mitchell Big Game Tinsley during the game because he had, I can't remember what it was, a huge catch. Move the chains or something, it was a huge catch. So Mitchell Big Game Tinsley, 4 for 68, 17 yards per catch. And Dalvin Smith, got to mention Dalvin, 1 catch, 13 yards, but a touchdown. I can't remember the stat, Steve. Maybe you can. But somebody during the game said he's got like 5 career catches and 3 of those gone for touchdowns.
Touchdowns, yeah, exactly. It's good.
Pretty efficient stuff for Dalvin Smith, so good for him. All in all, I said the Tops did run the ball much better. We just weren't in a situation where we could see that continue to go. 6 wide receivers in this game had at least 11 yards per catch average, and 5 guys had multiple catches. So the Tops are still doing a great job of spreading it around. I didn't even mention David Davis had the beautiful, like 55-yard right up the seam touchdown. I mean, there wasn't nobody catching him. So that dude's turning out to be a really nice weapon early on in the season. Steve, what about this offense? What did you like?
I mean, other than the slow start and not going for it late on fourth down, I mean, I liked what we were doing. Taking shots when they were there, good tempo, good movement, and putting people in space. And if that's the kind of trouble that we're giving good Army defense, now a good Indiana defense, even though we may be staring down the barrel of a 1-3 start, I'm not hanging my head going into conference play because there's not any Big Ten defenses in conference. I can promise you that. So I think we're going to be okay, no matter what this non-conference record ends up being. Def Texas, Bailey Zappi, still riding that train. He didn't have the turnover bug, no interception this game. And just so many weapons to work with. I still want to see the ground game improve. I want to see it be more effective, but I think that's going to happen in a game where we're playing with the lead, where we start fast, we jump on somebody, and then we're just feeding it and let the offensive line push some people around, create some holes, and let those running backs just grind that clock down. That'll happen. We just haven't been in a game. The UTM game maybe, but it was also the first game of the season, new system, new players, new coaches. We need to run some of those plays that we've been practicing. But I think we'll get to one of those games where the rushing offense breaks out, so to speak. It might not be 200 yards, but it's going to be more than an 80-plus yard performance that we saw against Indiana. But overall, I mean, offense was still did what they need to do. Obviously a little short in points, but, still you have to be optimistic about what the season still has in front of them. And, all of our season goals are still attainable.
Yeah, and even after this week, we're not tallying this one up as a straight-up loss. So even after we preview Michigan State, whatever we think will happen, happens, and then whatever actually does happen, happens. All those goals will still be on the table. You can still win the East. You can still win the conference. You can still go to a bowl game and win that bowl game and have a really impressive season. I will say, though, I don't feel like we will be in a situation to see the Western run game break out the way you're talking about for at least a couple of more weeks, because I'm not sure that UTSA is the game where that's built to happen either. And we'll talk about that, of course, in a couple of weeks. Let's talk about defense now. AJ Brathwaite, big game, big game. 15 tackles, 9 solo, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack, earning Conference USA co-defensive player of the week honors. Excellent game by AJ. Antoine Kincaid, 14 tackles of his own, 4 solo and a half tackle for loss. D'Angelo Malone had a great game against big competition. 9 tackles, 2 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and a quarterback hurry. D'Angelo needed this game to show that he can play with the big guys, so to speak. We know what he can do in conference, and he's done it quite a bit. He needed to have this kind of sort of what you might call marquee performance against a quote-unquote marquee opponent. And if he can mirror that this weekend, then you got to think that draft stock starts to rise a little bit. Will Ignont, great game as well. 8 tackles, 6 solo, 2 tackles for loss. Kind of all over the place this week for the Tops. And Demetrius Kane, how about this? 8 tackles, 3 solo, half a tackle for loss, half a sack, and a quarterback hurry. Almost a mirror image game of D'Angelo Malone. So don't let that just go unnoticed. Like, that's a big time game. That's a nice big stat line. He's a blink away from 1.5 sacks and 1.5 tackles for loss and being right there with Malone. Impact plays for the Tops, 3 sacks as a team, 8 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hurries. But I guess the big one, would be that they forced no turnovers. That probably would have helped quite a bit, whether they could get points or not. It just would have been a possession that didn't result in points for Indiana. Special teams wise, Narveson 1-1 on field goals, 4-4 on extra points. Haggerty had a great game punting as well. 3 punts, 51.7 yard average, and he banged one out for 61 on the long of the day. Let's talk about some grades here, because I'm sure, this is, I don't want to give too much away, because I don't know how many Western fans listen to our Marshall episodes and stuff like that. But, Trace always says, I can't give a grade of an A in a loss. And I agree. I can agree with that. I mean, how could it be an A game if you don't win? But he graded the Herd about as well as I've ever seen him grade in a loss. And I'm curious if you'll kind of follow suit a little bit in some of these categories. So what do you got for the quarterback, Bailey Zappi, against Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, Bailey played a pretty flawless game, in my opinion. Yeah, there's always some throws that you would have loved to have back. Almost had an interception early in the game, but it was dropped. That's okay. But I still think it was like almost 75% completion, great QBR, 3 touchdowns, 350-plus yards. So it's hard to give the QB1 anything less than an A when he really kind of played his heart out. He left it all in the field, and he was ready to go on that 4th down. So I'm riding with that guy. He's got an A.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine just giving the dude one more snap and seeing what would have happened right there in that? I mean, I don't want to dwell on this, but I'm going to dwell on this. So let's say that they go for it and they get it and they go down the field and maybe they don't score, but they take another 3 or 4 minutes off the clock. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't get an opportunity. Maybe Indiana doesn't go all the way down the field. I don't know, but give the guy one more snap. I think he's earned it by now. Don't you think? You got to trust the guy to get you a yard and a half, especially in a big game like that. I know that's one Helton's going to want back. He might say in the post game, like, well, I did it for this, this, and this, and I'm good with it. But I bet you now he's probably like, damn, I really should have let him go for that. Damn it. All right, offensively, what do you got for the tops? 31 points is going to win you a bunch of games in Conference USA. We say that a lot. 458 yards of offense is going to win you a lot of games. I'm not sure that being minus 17 in time of possession is going to win you a lot of games, but tops continue to do that and only lose by less than a field goal. So what do you got for the offense?
I mean, I think the time of possession argument is really a byproduct of some of the quick strike that we do. I mean, we hit chunk plays and we're crossing midfield quick, 1 or 2 plays. Even if you go back to 14, 15, 16, we often saw some time of possession mismatches because we'll score in a minute 30. You'll get the ball back for 3, 4, 5 minutes. We'll get the ball back, score in a minute 30. You get the ball back for 3, 4 minutes. So the time of possession, I'm not going to dwell on. I'm going to dwell more on the efficiency. If you have the ball 9, 10 times in the game, you need to score 6, 7 of those possessions, not 4 or 5 of those possessions, which is kind of what we're seeing. Starting slow, not scoring early, digging a hole is not helping this offense and kind of forcing us to do what we have to do more often, which puts the defense in a better position to stop that. But offensively, I mean, I give them a B. I mean, it was a tough opponent. I mean, nobody was looking past Indiana. I mean, they're a good team. They had just battled the top 10 team in the country down to the wire. They've got a couple losses, but they're still a really, really good football team. And I'm not hanging my head losing to them at all. So offense is still a B for me. I still am impressed with what I see. Obviously we want to see 3 more points at the end of the day, but it was still a good showing for the offense.
Yeah, I think it was a great showing for the offense. They proved that they can hang with anyone up to this point, no matter what style of offense you're running. I mean, who's going to run a style of offense like Army for the rest of the year? No one. Who's probably going to be as, I don't want to say bigger, faster, and stronger, you know what I mean? Because it's not really that. But who's going to match up the way Indiana matches up with your defense for the rest of the year? Probably not too many teams. And to be able to score on both types of teams is different. So, but you can still do it. Defensively, what do you got here? I'll be honest with you. I didn't see Michael Penix coming out and out passing. I don't think out passing is the right word. Passing for more yardage than Bailey Zappi in this. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did. So what do you got for this defense against the Hoosiers?
I mean, overall, I was, I guess, impressed, optimistic that, we were better in the run game. I think we held them to around a 4-yard average on rushes. But their offense was taking what we gave them. I can't remember the guy's name. Had a weird name, wide receiver.
Yeah,
he was
Freifogel.
Freifogel. He would just find the soft spot of the defense, turn around, catch the ball, and move the chains. Just taking what we gave them. Then there were some missed tackles early that I was concerned about. Seemed like we were ripping for the ball instead of just making a clean tackle. But overall, I like the aggressiveness. We applied a lot of pressure. We had some stops when we needed some stops. But we just, we're one away from pulling out a victory. So overall, I'll give the defense a B-, close to a C. It's borderline C, but I think there's improvement there. Obviously, this next game is going to be possibly a tougher task for them with the rushing offense coming in with Michigan State. But I was overall impressed. I wasn't displeased. The effort was there. It wasn't just them that lost the game by any means. I'm impressed. They did well and well enough to win the game, honestly.
Yeah, they showed up big time for this game. If you cherry pick a couple of guys for Indiana and look at the stat line, you're like, wow, those guys really dominated. But it's like you said, it's like you take what the defense is giving you. Freifogel ends up with 10 catches for 98 yards. I mean, he just moved the chains all night long. He just did. Michael Penix didn't throw a touchdown pass. That's big. Carr is the guy that, had a decent game, but they ran him 25 times and he barely got over 100 yards. He just happened to get 2 on the ground. And I think both of them were for a yard out or 2 yards out. It's not like he just gashed the defense for these big long runs. It was bend. And then dang it, we couldn't get that one more stop, or dang it, they called offsides when they shouldn't have, that kind of stuff. So fair grade. I mean, a fair grade. It really is. Special teams, solid. What do you got for the special teams?
Well, Haggerty was on the Ray Guy watch list for this week, grade 8. So, obviously a 50+ yard punt average. Narveson perfect on all his kick. Beanie Bishop had 3 kick returns for 72-ish yards, I believe, a 24-yard average. So special teams, no qualms there. I give those guys an A. They did what they were supposed to do when they were on the field. They executed and did things the right way. So I'll give those guys an A.
Yeah, I would like to think that on that 4th down call, choice to punt, even if Western gets another 15 yards, I like Narveson's chances in a packed stadium to hit one from 50. In a big time kick situation, one of those all right, this is why I'm here. I liked his chances to do that, but he just didn't get the opportunity. Coaching for this game against Indiana, I'm going to leave it up to you. No lead in. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some questionable stuff. All the penalties, there were, I think, 9 penalties for the game. So obviously you want to play cleaner ball there. There were no turnovers, so that's great. But the penalties, just kept kind of putting us in tough situations and letting drives continue for Indiana. The hindsight of going for it and not going for it on 4th down. Again, it's hindsight. It's easy to question those calls when you're just a fan, just sitting in the bleachers. It's easy to make those decisions. But, not going for it on 4th down late in the game with nothing to lose, like you said, that's one he'll want back for a while, as he goes back and just reflects on that game. I would trust number 4 with the ball more than I would trust our defense on the field 10 times out of 10. Just because that guy has just proven his value and his productivity, being one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the country, near the top of every passing list and efficiency and percentages. And he's played a game less than most of those people, and he's still up on those lists. So let that man pull the ball. Let him throw it and see what happens. Roll the dice when you're the underdog. You're playing from behind, and you got a crowd that, who knows what would have happened. It might have gotten crazy. So I'm going to give coaching a C, just because there's some stuff in there that we need to clean up still. And there are some questionable decisions that, again, hindsight makes it so easy to question them. But like you said, even in real time, you're saying, hey, what are we doing? Go for that.
It was immediate.
Yeah. So I think a C is fair. It was average. Put the pedal to the floor and go for it.
Yeah. I mean, outside of, I'm sure you saw a little bit more than what I saw, but it goes back to basically 1 or 2 decisions for me. as to where this game goes. If you go for it on fourth down, maybe we're talking about a different outcome here. So this situation is going to come up again throughout the duration of the season. They're going to be in a tight game with a Conference USA opponent, and I'm not so sure that they elect to punt this time. They might go, screw it, we're going for it this time. Hell with it. I got Bailey Zappi and Jarrett Stearns and freaking Craig Burton, big game Mitch Tinsley. I'm going for it. And we'll see where it goes. And if he gets, persecuted on social media for going for it and it doesn't, they don't convert, then so be it. But, everybody can look back to this moment and go, damn, we wanted him to go for it this time and he didn't. And now he went for it and didn't make it. And now we're pissed over that too. Overall, Steve, what do you got for the Tops in a valiant effort against Indiana? Sellout crowd, dude. I'm going to set it all up. A sellout crowd, blackout. They went all in and all out, and it was great. So overall, what do you got for the team against the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a loss here, and nobody's happy or pleased with that. But overall, I think the direction of the team and the offense and the defense is starting to show a little bit more continuity and just coming together for what could be a good conference run. So I'm going to give them a B. It wasn't a win, but I still think it was a good overall team effort and something that we can build on in a couple tough matchups coming up.
Well, you graded pretty much like Trace did, the best grade you can almost get in a loss. So I don't know what more we can ask for between these two teams other than to just get one to go their way. Marshall has dropped 2 heartbreakers 2 weeks in a row. Western has basically done the same thing, but they've got an even bigger opportunity coming up. So on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about the trip up to East Lansing to play Michigan State, top 25 Michigan State, I might add. Stick with us. We're going to have a special guest to help us break it down. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast.
Off the timeout. One left for Western Kentucky. Second down, 19. Zappi throwing deep ball. Davis has got it. Touchdown, Western Kentucky. Daywood Davis.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Big trip up to East Lansing for Western Kentucky this week to finish out the out-of-conference schedule. They've got top 25 ranked number 17 Michigan State on the schedule. This could be a massively eye-opening win if the Tops are able to pull off something, I don't want to say miraculous, but it's going to be a massively uphill battle. They came really close within an eyelash of beating Indiana, but Indiana I don't think is the same team that Michigan State is. I'm pretty sure they're built a little bit differently. But we got somebody to help us break that down this week. Somebody that follows not only the Tops pretty closely, but Michigan State pretty closely, and that's not something you run into very often. So we've got Bryce Mahoney with us to help bring us up to speed on Michigan State, give us a little bit of insight that we otherwise might not have had. But let's get the generalities out of here before we get Bryce in and Steve in. Power Index, not a big fan of the Tops this week. 10.8% chance to win. Tops going into the game plus 10.5. And of course, we're recording on Tuesday. That could change as the week goes along. Over under of 61 if you're into that sort of thing. The game, of course, going down this Saturday, 10-2, October 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 Central on FS1. So pretty prime network, pretty prime time slot. Tops could raise some big eyebrows if something awesome happens and they can get a win. Michigan State's coming in 4-0. I just said ranked top 25, number 17 currently. Wins over Northwestern, Youngstown State. They did knock off at the time number 24 Miami, the Hurricanes, and then they just beat Nebraska in a fairly close game. This will be the first all-time meeting against Western Kentucky for Michigan State, so no real history to go off of here. Not that that kind of matters in 2021, kind of what happened in 95 or something like that. But, fellas, come on in, take the mics off mute, and let's talk about Michigan State. Bryce, let's bring us up to speed on some things. What's the game look like to you? What are you expecting to see between Western Kentucky and Michigan State up in East Lansing?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Really much kind of going to echo what you had talked about. Really good, tough team. You can kind of take what Indiana brought to the table, almost magnify it maybe a little bit more, bigger, faster, stronger, play old school football up in East Lansing. Kind of the way that our defense has looked throughout the season, what I would say is it's going to have to be a shootout because Michigan State's got a lot of fun firepower on offense. They run the ball really well. They can spread it out if need be. Tough team. Like I said, Big Ten football, going to run it down your throat, play old school and make the big plays. But an opportunity for WKU to make a splash, like we had said, a couple close ones, really close ones, games that had opportunities to make it even, take that next step forward. This is that first meeting, so who knows what comes on the table and see how it plays out. But definitely a big opportunity for the Hilltoppers.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. If they get a win against Indiana, they might go in with a little bit of mojo, a little bit of bounce in their step, but I still don't think that that's going to really have any effect. I don't think there's a hangover from Indiana. If anything, I think they're like, all right, man, we can hang with these people. Like, they're not, the talent gap is not just massive. Like, the experts, the talking heads want it to be. That P5, G5 gap that they like to think is just monumentally large. It really ain't that damn large. Western Kentucky can pass on anybody. It's been proven now. So I'm sure Michigan State has some excellent defenders, as do most teams that Western's going to face. But the myriad of weapons that's there for Western to spread across the field and that they can rely on to make a play for them, it's like 7, 8, 9 guys deep. So it's an interesting matchup. I don't know how many times we're going to see a shootout. It seems like all these games are building up to be the same way. Like, teams that run really, really well can do that against Western Kentucky, and then the Tops have to get these quick strike touchdowns to get back in the game or keep pace or stay in the game. Steve, what do you think that this game's going to look like? Are we going to see a very similar type game played that we just saw? Or is the time of possession disparity a thing that's going to continue? Or do you think maybe we've learned a little bit more about what we need to learn about to get that a little closer? What do you think?
I think Michigan State's going to be a lot more physical team. I just think up front in the trenches on both sides of the ball, they're going to be the most talented and the biggest and the deepest team that we've faced in a while. Starting with their offensive line, starting with their running back. They've obviously proved that they're really, really good and really, really effective. And knowing, just scouting us any bit this season, when that's our weak point on defense, our rush defense, I would expect them to try to exploit that and just really pound the ball down our throats. And then when it makes sense, they're going to open up, pull a play action out, kind of similar to what Army did. And catch those DBs and those safeties, inching down towards the line, and then they're going to go over our head. So I think it's going to be a tough ball game. It's an uphill battle. We're the underdogs going into a tough environment against a very, very good team. And it's going to take everything we have clicking perfectly for us to pull off an upset.
I tell you what, Tops being just plus 10.5 to me is a show of respect, because they were plus 9.5 against Indiana. And they come into this game early in the week, of course, plus 10.5. I think that there's people in Vegas that are like, look, man, we don't really necessarily like the Tops to win, but damn, if they can't keep it close, and they might edge it out. So if they get blown out by Indiana, then maybe this is like a plus 21, but it ain't that. So there's people down in Las Vegas that do this for a living that think this could be a fairly tight game. Power Index doesn't really give a crap. They are loving Michigan State right now. But look, offensive line, I just did the math. I usually don't do this, but I was curious. You talk about Big Ten teams, especially ones that run really well. Offensive line averages across for Michigan State is 6'5", 310. That's pretty good. And you talked about the running woes so far against Western Kentucky's defense. We'll see if Kenneth Walker just has his way, but I don't know. So look, I'm going to talk about some players here in a minute, Bryce, for this Michigan State offense, guys that these fans need to look out for. But before we get into that, if I were to charge you with attacking this offense from a defensive standpoint, if you're the defensive coordinator for Western Kentucky, who do you try to target? Who do you try to take out of the game first? You tell me. You follow them both really closely. If there's a weakness, where does the weakness lie?
Well, like you'd mentioned, Kenneth Walker's kind of the guy, right? But I think Western and Coach Crum know that Kenneth Walker's the guy. So obviously you want to shut him down first. Peyton Thorne, who's the quarterback for Michigan State, has stepped in and really done a good job this year. But I think he might be kind of one of those little aspects that you put some pressure on him. He's played poised. He's played really well up until this point, but it really hasn't been any issues of where you're going to get a lot of pressure on him, and you've had him try and make these difficult decisions. So I would like to see a little bit of pressure on him and really force him to make the plays. Well, one of the keys that I thought to bringing the game home for the Tops was make somebody else beat you. Don't get beat by the guys that are beating all the other teams. Take those guys out of the equation, which is obviously much easier said than done. But, do that to the best of your ability. And even Kenneth Walker, even against Nebraska last week, he struggled to get going. I don't even think he got up to 100 yards against them. So, everybody has their kryptonite, but I really think focusing in on Thorne and making him uncomfortable, get D'Angelo back there, get those guys up front for us. We've got a decent defensive line too. Allow them to get back there and make some plays and see where it takes us.
Well, Western Kentucky, we think, has a very good defensive line, and it really only takes one missed assignment, and any one of those guys will light your world on fire, and it's over with. Like, if they get a good lick on you, it's a wrap. They can put you out of the game. They can get the ball on the ground, and it can be going the other way real fast. But look, you mentioned Peyton Thorne. He's the first guy you got to talk about, of course, when you talk about players to watch out for. Number 10, the quarterback, 6'2", 210-pound sophomore, just a sophomore. You said he stepped in and played really well. Look, it's I don't want to say limited stats. We got 4 games in. He's only got 100 pass attempts. I mean, they're only throwing 25 times a game with him. They're doing something right on the ground, obviously. 62 out of 100 for 909 yards, 10 touchdowns versus 1 interception. Well, that doesn't bode well because he takes care of the damn football. He has been sacked 8 times, so rough average of about 2 a game. You do like that. We'll see if Western Kentucky can make some noise in that aspect. Number 9, running back Kenneth Walker III, 5'10", 210-pound junior. Like I said, one of the best in the country. And Tops are going to have their hands full. 76 carries on the season, 554 yards, 7.3 yards per carry for Walker, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Not to be discounted is backup running back number 22, Jordan Simmons, 5'11", 195 sophomore, only 26 carries, 145 yards, but that's also 5.5 yards a carry. So when Walker needs a breather, Simmons can also light you up. And then we'll talk about a trio of wide receivers. Number 1, Jaden Reed, 6', 185, junior, leads the team in all major receiving categories. 16 catches, 336 yards, 21 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns through the air. Leads the team all 4 categories. Number 17, wide receiver Trey Mosley, 6'2", 195, sophomore, 13 catches, 193 yards, 14.8 yards per reception. No touchdowns yet. And number 8, wide receiver Jalen Naylor, 6', 190, junior, 10 catches, 141 yards, 14.1 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns through the air. So Naylor and Reed seem to be the go-to targets when you're talking about passing touchdowns. Remember, Thorne has 10. These dudes have 7. So all in all, this Spartan offense, good for 35 points a game and 453.5 yards per game, and they're really balanced. 238 through the air, 215 on the ground. Conversely, the Tops are allowing 30.7 points per game and 439 yards per game. Also very balanced, 215 through the air and 224 on the ground. So, I mean, it's strength on weakness. I can't call the defense a weakness, but it's like the season averages are the same. It's pretty wild. So, Steve, what do you do here if you're the Toppers?
Well, I think, Michigan State's going to come in prepared. I mean, they're going to know what we do, what we want to do. And that's, our offense wants to be on the field, getting chunk plays. So they're going to hand the ball off to Kenneth Walker. And if I'm not mistaken, he also is, if he's not leading the country, he's near the top of the country in broken tackles this year. So not only is he a good runner, he's a strong runner, and he's hard to bring down. So don't be surprised if between him and his backup, they put it in their gut 40 to 50 times. Don't be surprised. The easiest way to stop an offense that is as potent as ours can be is to keep them on the sideline. And that's what Michigan State is probably going to do. They're probably just going to grind the clock out, be efficient, score touchdowns, and just keep our offense on the sideline. Obviously, our offense has to come out. Same thing I said against IU, said against Army. We've got to come out and start fast. If we don't score early and often and take kind of control of the game flow, then we're just playing right into them just putting the ball in Kendall Walker's gut and letting him, gash us at will, because that's what will happen if they're playing with the lead. They're just going to grind that clock down, grind our defensive line down, and then take shots when they're there. So our offense has to come out fast. We've got to score early and often. Defense has to be bend, don't break. I feel like I'm, wash, rinse, repeat from previous games. Yeah, just clip what I said against Indiana, plug it in here, but magnify it.
Do I even need you on the show anymore? I can just take out what you said last week and put it in this week.
I'm logging out, but I think it's gonna be magnified though, because I think our points are gonna be harder to come by, and I think Michigan State is gonna be more efficient at keeping us off the field. And you already know the time of possession disparities we've had in a couple of games. Don't be surprised if we're recapping this game and it's 2-1 time of possession again. So our offense is going to have to start early, start fast, be efficient, and hopefully catch some breaks on the other side of the ball and get the ball back and capitalize on them. Every drive needs to finish in points. 3 or 6. It has to happen.
We're not even at the points to victory yet, and you're already like stealing my lines over here, man. Like, I'm gonna have to fire you. You're like taking like literally the words off my page. But you talked about scoring points. Let's talk about who's going to try to keep the Tops from doing that. Of course, the Michigan State defense. I've got I don't know, 5 guys here that we need to keep an eye out for. Some guys are the ones leading in tackles. Other guys are just got the impact stats that you got to have. But it starts with number 3, safety, Xavier Henderson, 6'1", 210-pound senior. He's got 42 tackles on the season, 27 of those solo. Let me just stop right there. Those 27 solo tackles are the same number as the next highest tackler on the team. Like the second highest tackler has 27 total tackles. That's how much of an impactful player Henderson is for the Spartans. On top of all those tackles, 2 sacks, 1 pass defended, and an interception. Number 27, linebacker Cal Halliday, 6'1", 235-pound freshman. The next leading tackler, like I said, just 27 total tackles, 6 of those solo and 2 passes defended. I don't think I've ever seen 27 total tackles, but only 6 solo. He's in and around the ball a lot, that's for sure. Number 6 linebacker Quavaris Crouch, 6'2", 230-pound junior. 24 tackles, 13 solo, 2 sacks, a pass defended, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Good all-around player for the Spartans. And then a couple of defensive ends. They're kind of down there on the tackles tally column, but lots of sacks between these guys. Number 47, defensive end, Jeff Petrowski, 6'1", 250. Sophomore, 13 tackles, 8 solo, 3.5 sacks, leads the team, and 1 fumble recovery. And then number 86, defensive end, Drew Beasley, 6'2", 260. He's a senior, 11 tackles, 7 solo, and 2.5 sacks for Bees. Impact plays for the team, 16 total sacks, 18 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Dude, they get after the ball. So, Bryce, when the Toppers have the ball, where do they attack? We know they have tons of weapons. We know they have a myriad of guys that can catch a pass and make a move and be gone. So who do you steer clear of, and who do you try to attack?
I think you play to the strengths. Do what we do best is get the ball out of Zappy's hands quick and effective to the guys that can make the plays. Get it to Stearns. Don't be afraid to chuck it downfield against Bird. I would attack the corners and avoid, like you said, Henderson is everywhere. I mean, he's all over the field all the time. He's kind of that Swiss Army knife of a safety, that senior leader that they have in that defensive backfield. But then, attack those corners. Look for those matchups that you've got. I think Stearns can match up and go toe-to-toe with a lot of the best cornerbacks in the country. I think he just has that get off of the ball. He's got a great understanding of the system and how to run routes. Get it out quick. Get it to the guys that can make those plays. Like you said, you've got bookend defensive ends all over that defensive line, even in the backups. Those guys are going to be active. Those guys are going to be back there. run the system, get it out quick, let the guys make those plays. I think that's the best way to go about it.
It looks like, from the surface, obviously 16 team sacks, that's easy math, 4 a game. But this isn't a team that takes a lot of sacks. So Zappy's very efficient at getting the ball out. Steve, what do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be quick passes and catch and run type stuff, or is it going to be challenging the corners on deep balls? What do you think is the thing to try the most in this game? Please don't say whatever works.
No, I mean, 100%. We're gonna put guys in space just like we have all season. One thing we haven't mentioned though is that we have a transfer from Michigan State on our team.
That's true.
Davion Williams, a defensive back. I don't know how much insight he has. I don't know what he knows, what he can, whisper into our offensive coordinator's ear, what to look for, things to know, but there's something there potentially. Whether it comes to fruition of any positive plays, who knows? But I think it's interesting to talk about. But I think, just like Bryce said, we're going to have to do what we do, what we've been successful at. We can't drop back and have 5-step drops consistently. We need to step back, quick hitters over the middle, occasional hits down the sideline or up the seam. Whatever is working, the tempo has to be what we lean on. And mix in the other stuff, mix up the running plays, the screens, the deep shots. We at this point, we kind of know who we are offensively, and I don't think we can stray away from who we are and try to pull an upset. We have to be who we are and be that better than what the other team is, which will be a big task.
Let me tell you what I think may be a benefit when you have a guy transfer in from a team that you're playing. So that guy's been in positional drills with his position coach and other guys that are undoubtedly still on that roster. And he's been around when those other guys have been chewed out for doing something wrong, a bad tendency, or, he makes the wrong move on this particular route. And that's the kind of stuff maybe you can share that might work once in a game. And if you're able to capitalize on that one time when it works, then that's your benefit for a guy that has transferred in from a team on the roster. I don't know if it'll even happen, but that's what I think about. Like, yeah, I remember who used to get chewed out for screwing up. And if he gets this look, this is what he might do. So, try to exploit that type thing. So look, let's just get keys to victory here. This is going to be a big uphill battle. We all know it. Nobody's fooling anybody. This is a David and Goliath type matchup. Top 25 team. I mean, this is a big opportunity, but it's not an easy opportunity. So, Bryce, what are your keys to victory for the Tops? What do you think's got to happen for the Tops to have a best chance to secure a dub?
Yeah, I'll pull Steve's broken record here and go with the offense has to start fast.
Yep,
it does. So that's homecoming for Michigan State too, which I just found out today. And so I'm like, okay, they're going to come out with energy and that place will be rocking, getting ready to go. So come out and punch them in the mouth, make a big play, get going early. We haven't seen that out of WKU's offense, which is just confusing, because when it goes and it goes good, like really, really good. So let that roll, let that go. Try and limit their explosive plays. The first 2 games of Michigan State season, they scored on the first play, and with it being homecoming, with the talent that they have, with us not wanting to get into an uphill battle, don't let them just bust off big plays and get the crowd going and get into it. That'll just make it a little bit harder for us. And like I said earlier, let somebody else beat you. All those guys are good. Walker's good. Thorne's had a good year. Force him to be uncomfortable. Make him make some throws. Have somebody but the guys that beat us. I think that would be huge. And I think a big matchup for us is our offensive line versus their defensive line. I put that as one of kind of the matchups of the game. We control that a little bit better. We slow them down, allow Zappy to make the read, make the good throws. I think we've got an interesting chance to put up some points and see how it goes. But we'll see how it is up in East Lansing. I'll be boots on the ground. I'm excited to go see it.
I bet it should be a good info. I had no idea that it was going to be homecoming. That always just kind of sucks. I don't think it has any, outcome on what Western's trying to do, but it just sucks knowing that you're the homecoming opponent. Steve, what are the keys to victory for Western this week? Other than, you got to start fast.
Copy and paste my Indiana segment into this one. But
let me go back and look at it because I want to hear it. Let's see.
I'm adding a couple things though. Obviously, we've said start fast. We've got to score early and often. We can't get in a hole because then they're just going to hand the ball off and grind us down even harder. Turnovers, I mean, we've got to keep those to a minimum. Whether that's 0 or whether that's, matching whatever they do. We can't put the ball on the ground multiple times or throw multiple picks and just be at that much of a disadvantage when it comes to empty possessions and try to win the game. Third and fourth down, our defense has to hold them to less than 50%. The teams that have beat us have been above 50%. And then our third and fourth down conversions have to be above 50%. When we have opportunities to keep drives going, we have to keep drives going and get points at the end of the drive, whether it be 3 or 6. And then with their strong defensive line play, defensive ends, and the pressure that they're going to apply because they want to make Zappe uncomfortable, we have to keep Zappe clean. He's not been hit much this year. And I'm not saying 0 sacks because that's going to be a tall task given the athletes that they have and the pressure that they're going to apply. But we have to keep Zappe as clean as possible. And it's going to start up front with the protection and him getting the ball out quick.
A coverage sack, I think, we'll be okay with. It's that missed blocking assignment that nobody sees coming is what we cannot see. But yeah, all fair points. And look, let's just make this a clean sweep. Of course, my number one key to victory, of course, is you got to have the fast start. You can't spot them the first quarter without putting up any real offense. It just can't be that way. You don't necessarily have to score on the first freaking possession, but damn, you can't go the whole first quarter without putting something on the board. And to that end, I think the Toppers need to score in all 4 quarters in order to make something happen, some consistent, sustained scoring, instead of piling it all up 21 points in the second quarter and then 28 points in the fourth quarter and falling just short. Let's see some consistent drives, even if they're quick drives, but let's just say consistent scoring. Number 2 for me, I flat out, I think they're going to have to play flawless. I do. I think they're going to have to make all the right moves. They're not going to be able to be sloppy. They're not going to be able to miss an opportunity. They're going to have to play a flawless game in order to get a win. Number 3, though, if you do go down and you go down by a couple of scores, 9, 10 points, 14 points, keep chopping. You're capable of scoring on any snap. That's how this offense is built. So keep chopping. Don't get down. Just keep playing your game. We saw them do that against Indiana. Indiana just kept scoring, whether it was 3 or 6. They just kept putting points on the board, and Western just kept chopping. And they came up at the end of the game close with an opportunity to win, and it just didn't come to fruition. Number 4, they're going to also have to catch some breaks, and that means turning Michigan State over. You may even have to get a defensive score or a special team score. You're going to have to catch some breaks, lighten the load of the offense. They can do a lot, but I don't know that they can do it all. And I've seen this and said it for 2-3 weeks now. Whenever this offense they just might not have enough possessions in the game to score enough points to win the game. So, and we saw that with, Indiana. If Western gets one more possession, maybe they go down and win the game. But they just ran out of time. And I'm going to give you a 5th one this week because it's a big game. And generally once or twice a year, you'll hear me talk about this, and it's a term that I like to use, and that's what I call the hidden 10 minutes of the game. I believe Western Kentucky is going to have to win the hidden 10 minutes of the game, which means the last 5 minutes of the first half and the first 5 minutes of the second half. Those in-between minutes, that 10-minute span to where you could potentially score right before half and come right out and score again is a pivotal point in the game for a lot of games. And this is one, if Western can control that and get some points on both ends of that, they could really sneak up and get a win. All right, 200 proof player time, guys. Bryce, who's your 200 proof player for Western Kentucky against Michigan State?
I'll give you one guess. If last week against Indiana was any indication, yeah, Steve's holding up the floor until somebody else kind of steps up and changes the game for us. It's got to be Bailey. He's the wheel that makes it go, and he's done well. But just to echo everything you guys had both said, it's got to go fast. It's got to go quick because this is this is the best team we're going to play. Just like you had said too, there's opportunities out there. Are they very talented? Yes. They went to overtime against the Nebraska team that I don't think is very good at all and almost lost it. So there's opportunities for a good offensive team like us to get in there, make some plays, change things up. And I think that kind of begins and ends with Old Bailey.
Steve, I know he stole your pick, but I'm pretty confident what your pick's going to be. Who's the 200 proof player this week?
Death, taxes, Bailey Zappi.
Patented saying for Stephen Moffitt. Yeah, it's Bailey Zappi for me too. Until somebody else has to be the guy. He's the guy. He just is. The offense is built around him, obviously, and he's the one that decides whether it moves or not. So until somebody else jumps up and has a 250-yard rushing game and puts 4 on the ground, he's the guy. Score prediction time, guys. Bryce, what do you got?
I've got 38-24, Sparty at home. It feels tough with how I've seen the defense play for us and how I know, like we had echoed over and over and over again. You know, it's a drag it out old school Big Ten football team. That doesn't mean we won't have the opportunities to change the game, really make it interesting as we go along. But I think this is a really tough Michigan State football team, and ultimately I think they wind up getting it done.
I can't fault you for that. Steve, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. I think the game's going to get a lot more physical than we're able to handle. I think they're going to be more efficient offensively than we are. I think they're going to score more drives. So I got Michigan State winning 49-28.
Man, you like those big scores, don't you? Man, he either big score one way or the other. Look, I got the
homecoming, baby.
Well, that's true. You got to put on a show for the boosters. Put on a show for the boosters. But I like Michigan State at home too. Bryce, you and I were actually really similar. I had, before we even started recording, I did my prep and all that good stuff, and I had 40-24. It just kind of feels that way. I like Western Kentucky to put up some points and make it respectable and show that they can continue to score on anybody. And, you know, maybe put a little bit of doubt into some Conference USA teams' minds, but it's just going to take a lot for this one, for the Tops to get a win. I'm not sure that enough is going to go right for them to get a win. Final thoughts time, guys. Bryce, anything you got? Final thoughts on the game or whatever else you may have. Now's your opportunity. What you got?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on, talking a little Tops football. Like I had said, kind of going into it. Any opportunity I get to talk Tops, I'm going to take that. And I know I've known Steve for a little bit now, but first time meeting you, KD, appreciate it. You guys do fantastic stuff here. I'm always tuning in. I've got an hour commute to work every day, so it's good to plug the podcast on and kind of drink my coffee and unwind at the end of the day. So no, I appreciate it. Should be fun. I'll be up in East Lansing, head to toe, Hilltopper gear, sticking out like a sore thumb and
drink it
in.
in.
Oh yeah.
Drink it in, Steve. That's your guy right there. You know, Steve came down to, you know, I went to Huntington a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you knew that. And I watched a Marshall game. I was in town for another event, but I was able to go to the game, and Steve drove up and went to the game and wore Western Kentucky garb the whole time. He's that guy. He don't care. You know, the Herd was playing North Carolina Central or something like that. And Steve's only dude around the Jones C. Edwards Stadium head to toe in red. And he got some side-eyed stares and people were like talking crap. So I love that. Don't back down. Show where your real loyalties lie. Steve, what you got this week for final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously facing an uphill battle. We're staring down the barrel, potentially being 1-3, and then having a really tough game at a UTSA team that's getting top 25 votes, and is 4-0, at the time of this recording. So, the schedule has been tough. The wins haven't happened. There's been some coin flip games, and games that have come down to 1 or 2 plays that we've lost. But really, in this type of game, we just want to come out healthy. We want to continue to grow. And just get better in all 3 phases. Special teams has been consistent, but defense, we saw improvement against Indiana. We need to continue to see improvement in tackling and rush defense. Maybe the secondary kind of softening up those zones. We just saw Indiana continue to move the chain. Every time they were in third down, they moved the chains. So still not, hanging our heads. on the season, even though we may be 1-3 after this week. But conference play will still be tough. Starting at UTSA is going to be another tough matchup. But I still like our offense against any defense in this conference. The two toughest ones are probably UAB and Marshall. We don't play UAB this year, but we do play Marshall. They swarm and are very active getting to the ball. They put a lot of pressure on the football, try to cause a lot of turnovers, and their offense has been very potent as well. So, in no way, shape, or form is a 1-3 non-conference record going to make me go, man, maybe Kitley wasn't it, because we're light years ahead of where we were last year. The excitement's there. Points are there. Offense is there. Playmakers are there. We've just played some really tough teams. And that's not going to stop here for a few more weeks. So, let's continue to build on what we've been doing, continue to get better. And eventually the wins are going to start coming. We're going to put it all together in all three phases and come out victorious, hopefully more often than not as we get into conference play.
I tell you what, that's a point you made was saying, you want to come out of this game healthy. And that's not something that I generally concern myself with. But in the grand scheme of things, you really don't want to lose anybody as you head into the conference schedule, because just about every game is a winnable game in the conference slate. Every one. And you Tops might be on the losing end of this one when it's all said and done. They may not, but they may. And you go into facing UTSA at 1-3, and you're thinking, man, this sucks. But you're right; they're light years ahead of where they were a year ago and 2 years ago. I mean, we haven't seen an offense like this in a long time. There are kids that are on campus right now that have never seen it. That as a student, they've never seen it. So this is their first taste of what you and I saw 5-6 years ago, and we're telling people then, hey, this don't last forever, But here we are again, and it's back, and the opportunity to run through Conference USA is there. UTSA may be a top 25 team if they win this weekend. You'll get a top 25 matchup at home in a very winnable game. Now, we don't want to leap ahead to that. We still got one to play here, but try to get out of it healthy. Do all that you can to get a win, but definitely don't lose. If you got to get a penalty, if you got to get the most egregious, nasty holding penalty of all time to keep a bad lick off of Zappy, I think you do that. You know what I mean? Like, if Indiana can flop to keep you from getting any type of tempo going, then you can take bad penalties all day to keep your quarterback safe against Michigan State. Fair is fair, okay? So let's just see how the dust settles when it's all said and done. Bryce, glad you joined us. We had a good time. Maybe if the schedules line out, we can get you back on here to talk about the recap. Since you will be there, you can speak a little bit more intelligently than we'll be able to, I'm sure. So if the schedules line out, or if maybe just you and Steven are able to do that, we'll try to get that in the works. I was glad to have you. And, we'll try our bestest to get you back on. But until next week, we're out of here. Steve, take us out.
All right, man. Go Tops.
Go Herds. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Later. Stick around.